So, I want to talk about something that I've actually never talked about publicly before. I've only talked about this with, people that I'm really close to, my family, friends, and of course, Tyler, my boyfriend. So, I've never talked about this publicly, and I feel that I need to because um, it has been about 8 years now, and my PTSD and flashbacks from this experience are actually starting to get worse. So I feel like talking about this will probably not only help somebody else, but it's definitely going to help myself too, because I feel like talking about it might actually get some of that stress and anxiety about the whole experience out, since I've never really talked about it before. So what I'm going to talk about is my prison experience. And before you judge me and look at me like I'm some crazy hard criminal, I was only in prison for 3 months, and I only went because I had 2 DWIs too close together. So they thought that prison time would be more beneficial for me than, I guess, rehab. So, but that's a whole nother topic. Not that it wasn't beneficial, because it was. And, because of this experience, I learned probably one of the most life-changing and most important lessons of my life that I think I'll ever learn, to be honest. So I can't say that I regret the experience, because it's made me the person that I am, and it's taught me a lot, and I've gained a lot of wisdom and knowledge and strength from the experience. However, I am now suffering from PTSD, and even the flashbacks have actually gotten worse in the last year, I would say. So, the experience was truly traumatic, which I think is why it was such a life-changing experience. But at the same time, there's always good with bad and bad with good. So, but that is something else I'm going to talk about in this video, is learning to take and turn negatives into positives, because that's definitely something that I learned during this experience. So I hope you guys enjoy my stories, and I hope I make you laugh and cry, and stay tuned as I will be answering the top 10 questions that I have been asked about my prison experience over the last 9 years. It was 2009 to 2010 whenever I went to prison. So however long ago that was. Alright, so I hope you enjoy the video, and here are the top 10 questions I have been asked over the years. So before I start answering the questions and talking about my prison experience, I figured I should probably tell everybody why I even went. So this was back in 2009, and at this time in my life, I was a wreck. I had just got out of a 7-year relationship. The relationship that I was in was like my first love, my first everything. I mean, I had grown up with the guy, from 15 to about 22, 23. I grew up with the guy. So we dated 7 years, but we had just broke up like right prior to me getting locked up. And I actually was the one that broke up with him. And but even though I'm the one that did it, it was still like one of the hardest things I ever had to do in my life. So I was going through that, and also I had just lost a friend. She actually died from overdosing, and that was the first friend I had ever lost, and especially to death. I had lost friends before, but not to death. I mean, usually it was just like, I'm not talking to you anymore. I never lost anybody dying at this point in my life. until Jessica died. And she overdosed from drugs, obviously. And so at this point in my life, I was an absolute mess. I was one of those younger kids, and I guess younger adults too, that didn't think that my parents loved me, and obviously I didn't have the man anymore at the time, and I was so used to having a man all the time, and I had just lost one of my best friends to an overdose. So at this point in my life, I feel like I had just reached the end of my rope. I felt like everything was going wrong, and there was just nothing that I could do to make it better. So I drank a lot. I partied a lot. I drank a lot, because when I was in high school, I was such a good kid and a good girl. I didn't do anything at all. And it wasn't until I got out of school when I actually started drinking and doing all these different things and going to parties and stuff. So in this point in my life, I was drinking a lot, and I had obviously too much to drink. My first DWI, there was 2 of them, which is the whole sole reason that I even went to prison, is because they said that I had 2 DUIs or 2 DWIs at the time, and they were too close together. They were literally within like 3 months from each other. So I was going to court for the first one when I got my second one. Like, it was a mess, and I could smile about it now. It's been 9 years, but it's not really funny, because of the circumstances and because of what I was going through. The reason why I got into the mess I got in was because I had like mental issues. I was messed up inside. I was hurting. I was depressed. I felt like I didn't have anybody, and I had alcohol and drugs and stuff, so that kind of took over my life at that time. And I was driving. The first DWI I got, I still to this day will fight it, only because the legal limit at that time, I don't know about now, I don't even drink anymore, but at that time it was a .08, and the first DWI I got, I blew a .07. But for some reason, I had a jury trial and everything, and they found me guilty. They said that was still a DWI, and so that was my first one. My second one, I was definitely guilty of it. I don't really want to go into too much detail about, what I was intoxicated on, per se. It was just a really bad time in my life, and I really didn't care. So, I was intoxicated. I deserved that DWI 100%. I totally take fault for that one. And, one was in August, and the second one I got in December of the same year. It was 2008 when I got the both of them. And so that is actually why I ended up going to prison, because I had 2 DWIs and they were way too close together. I'm pretty sure that's what they had told me was the reason that I ended up going, was because they were close together. But who knows? So that is actually why I ended up going. So now I will get into the questions that I've been asked over the years. And obviously I'll be telling you some of my experiences and stories. So stay tuned. Say the questions and answer the questions, obviously, in order from beginning to end, because that's how experiences go. So my first question that I've been asked over the years, one of the biggest questions, is what were those moments like when you found out you were going to prison? Well, I actually knew I was going to prison about 10 minutes before I walked up there and was tried. Now, I had already been going to court like a few times prior to that for the second DUI. The first one was already over, and I had been put on probation for it. And I mean, it took a long time to go to court over these DUIs. I mean, it literally took, my DUIs happened in 2008. I didn't get locked up until the end of 2009. So that's how long it took. And y'all gonna have to forgive my cats. They are back here screaming and meowing. Anyways, so for the second one, maybe 3 times before I actually got tried. And so basically what had happened is about 10 minutes before it was my turn to go up there before the judge, my lawyer walks up to me and my dad. My dad was the one who went with me to court that day. And my lawyer walks up to us and he's like, well, I talked to the judge and I've tried as best as I could try, and he's going to give you the least amount possible, but you are still going to prison. Now, I don't know if he said prison or DOC. I'm not sure what he said, like how he worded it, but I do know that that's basically what he said. And the moment that he said that, because, you know, I wasn't expecting that I was going to go to prison. Like, I figured that if I was going to get any time at all, maybe I was going to get like 10 days and then I was going to get probation. But I didn't even think I was going to get locked up. And the moment that he said that I was going to prison, I think honestly my dad started crying before I started crying. And my dad is one of the strongest, toughest, manliest men that you'll ever meet, and he never cries. And the moment that man told me I was going, he started bawling, in which of course I was crying too, but seeing that just made me want to cry more, you know. And I just got like the most emptiest, like, it's one of those feelings you can't even describe. It's just empty. Like, I felt it in my gut. I could feel it all over my body. Like, I just felt extremely empty. And little did I know that was just the very beginning of all the empty feelings I was going to experience. Let me tell you. So basically, that's pretty much what happened. You know, I was told 10 minutes before. My dad and I were just bawling. And, you know, I walked up there to the judge, and it was like I was being sentenced to my death. That is exactly what I felt like. And, you know, then having my dad behind me, having to hear what basically happened that night that I got the DWI, like, that was also embarrassing. But I think he was too upset probably to even notice at the time. It was just a really, like, gut-wrenching, extremely lonely, helpless feeling. And that's just the best way that I can describe it. You know, it was one of the first and a very awful feeling. As you know, the hopeless feeling, that's probably one of the worst feelings I think that you could ever feel. And that definitely describes how I felt those exact moments that, you know, I was told, hey, you're going to DOC. So my next second question that I have been asked over the years, one of the biggest questions: how long were you in jail before you went to prison, and was it better than prison or worse than prison? Well, I don't know about you, but if you've ever been to the Cabarrus County Jail in North Carolina, you would definitely say that jail is way worse than prison. At least the prison I went to, it definitely was. I was only in jail, though, for 2 nights before they shipped me off to the big house. So I really wasn't there that long. However, that was our old jail. We since then have a new jail. But let me tell you, that place, I don't know if it's still open. If it is, or it was a dungeon. That should not even be suitable for criminals. Maybe like rapists. But yeah, that place is a dungeon. And when I say dungeon, I walked in there and there were girls sleeping all along the floor. And there was, I remember the shower. We had to stick a fork in the button, like to turn the water on. We had to stick a fork in it, like the back end of a fork, just to get the water to stay on for like 10 minutes or something. I can't remember. And it was terrible. Girls were washing their clothes in the toilet. I mean, it was awful. And I promise you, in these moments, it was like God was speaking to me. And you know, this is one huge reason I don't regret being locked up, because I'm a very spiritual person. I always have been, but I've never, before this experience, I maybe heard God speak to me a few times, but this experience was like the way that God finally spoke to me in a way that I would listen. And it was like I heard God say to me, and for the first time in a long time, and very clear, it was like He said to me, you think you have it bad out there in the free world. I'm going to show you what it's like to have it bad. I promise you that's exactly what He told me. And that's exactly what I went through. And that jail was definitely worse than prison. The new jail is worse than prison. A lot of people say jail's worse. You have a lot more freedom in prison. Jail, you are basically stuck in a cell. You don't see daylight. You don't go outside. If you've ever watched 60 Days In, it's just like that. That's exactly what our jail is like. So, oh man, I mean, it was terrible. Like, I was only in there 2 nights, but it really, that was the first time I'd ever been locked up. So, you know, this was my first experience. And I'm like, this is like hell. Complete hell. I remember a girl came in that like some of the other girls knew out on the street. And they like stayed up all night long yelling and screaming at each other. And it was like all the one girls against this girl that had just came in. And so like this girl was like just sitting there arguing with like 10 girls, but it was her fault anyway. But still, like, that was my first experience in jail, you know, ever. And they were just screaming at each other all night, 2 o'clock in the morning. I couldn't sleep. Our cells were like this big, and you had like a girl here, a girl here, a girl here, a girl here, the bunk beds, and the toilet was in the middle right there. We had a payphone, and it was on wheels, because we literally had the bars, you know, like the jail cell bars that you see in like the old school jails, or like movies and stuff. They have bars. That's what the jail was like. Not anymore, because that was back then and they finally built a new jail, but still, like, yeah, it was like a real dungeon, real jail you see like in movies and stuff with the bars. And we had to like reach our arms through the bar, I remember, to grab the payphone and to scoot it to each other, because it had wheels on it. I remember like girls in the other like cells would be like, hey, pass me the phone. And so like we would have to reach through the bar and grab it and like wheel it down, and then like the girls in the cell next to us would have to wheel it down to the girls in the cell next to them. I mean, it was freaking awful. Really awful. When they called my name and they were like, you pack your stuff, you are going to DOC. I mean, I was probably more excited that day than I was when I graduated or walked out of high school. Because I'm telling you, that's what I felt like. When they were like, you, let's go, pack your stuff, you're leaving. I hadn't been outside in 2 days, 3 days, 2 nights. I hadn't, I'd never been locked up before, so to me that was like a freaking month. You know, I was in a dungeon. It stunk. It was nasty. I felt like claustrophobic. I was dirty. I mean, it was terrible. And they don't give you shampoo or anything like that. Like, I had to get that from the girls there. Luckily, the girls were nice. You know, what if I would have been put in there with girls that weren't nice? I would have not had anything. So, yeah, when they called my name, boy, I jumped up and I was so happy. I mean, I don't know why. I mean, I know why, but like, I don't know why that was one of my happiest moments, you know, but it was. I mean, I was so happy to get out of the dungeon. I mean, that's all I could think. Let me out of this dungeon. And, but it was like late at night whenever they called my name to let me out. So, yeah. But that actually brings me to my next question. So, another one of the big questions that I've been asked over the years is, what was the actual ride to prison like? And, well, let me tell you, the ride to prison itself is like a story on its own. I mean, it was an adventure on its own for sure, to say the least. Okay, so, you know, of course, at first, I was extremely excited to be getting out of that dungeon, and I was ready to see outside, and I was just ready to go. You know, I was ready to see the outside world. I mean, I felt like I had been locked away for like 2 weeks. It was bad. You know, my mental state was already pretty bad. I mean, I was just talking to these other 2 female inmates that were going to prison too. And they were older women. And, you know, I just remember I kept talking. I was so happy to be getting out. They put handcuffs on us and on our hands, and then they put shackles on our feet, and we had to wear this the entire ride. And let me tell you, my police driver that was driving us got lost on his way to taking me to my prison. Seriously. So it ended up taking, I think, about 6 hours. It was like a 6-hour drive when it should have only been a 4-hour drive. And mind you, this is in the back of a police prisoner transfer van with handcuffs on my hands and shackles on my feet. I mean, it was painful, to say the least. But I think my heart hurt more than anything. I think my pride was hurt more than any physical pain. Because during this ride is when it actually hit me that I was actually leaving and that I was going somewhere, you know. I was so excited to be getting out of jail that I didn't realize, wait a minute, you're still not free. You're going to still be locked up. And you're actually going to a place with worse criminals. I don't know if I would even say worse criminals, but because even the bad criminals start out in jail. Like, you have to go to jail before you're sentenced to prison. So I don't know if that's even true, but you know what I mean. Like, prison is a different scenario than jail is. It really is. And you know, so here I am with 2 ladies with me in the very, very back of the van, and then there's 2 guys in the middle of the van, and then, of course, the cop driving. And we take the guys, well, first let me say this. They gave us food, okay? They gave us, like, food to eat with handcuffs on, right? That was so hard. I was so hungry that I figured out kind of how to eat it, but it was so hard to eat. And I remember one of the women in there, she actually like got slammed up against the back of the van because we were all shackled up, not together, but you know, individually we were shackled up, and it was like you couldn't balance yourself, you couldn't hold yourself. So like if the cop took like a really hard turn, guess what happened? You went flying if you couldn't hold yourself. So I remember like that happened to one of the women and she like fell on the floor. Her food fell everywhere. It was awful, man. But I don't know. I just remember trying to eat, but I was so hungry that I kind of sort of figured it out. It was really, really hard. And I remember talking to the ladies because they had both already been to prison, and they were actually going to a maximum prison. I only went to a minimum prison, and they were going to a maximum, so they had already been. So they were like telling me all the ropes of prison, I remember. And I remember one thing I was so happy about was that my lawyer had told me, and everybody was telling me, and those women were telling me, that DWIs got cut in half. Your time got cut in half once you served prison time. I don't know if they still do that, and I don't know if there's any other charges that they do that with. So if they still cut DWI time in half when you go to prison, comment and let me know, or email me and let me know. I just would like to know, or if there are any other charges that they actually do that with, because I always wondered, are DWIs the only charges where they cut your time in half? I mean, I was so thankful for that. The judge sentenced me to 6 months, maximum, minimum 6 months. However, my time got cut in half, so I only ended up doing 3 months total, thank God. So but I do remember, those ladies were telling me that, you're only gonna do half your time, so blah blah blah, don't worry about that. But I still had never been. I had no clue. I didn't know if I was just being like joshed around. I didn't really 100% know what was going on. I didn't even know what prison I was going to. Like, I had no clue. And I remember we took the guys there first. We took the guys to their prisons first. Now, one guy went to one prison, and the next guy went to a different one. But let me tell you, when we pulled up to those prisons, that was my face. Like, I was like, oh my God, is this what mine is gonna look like? If mine looks like this prison, I think I'm seriously going to end up dying somehow, some way. I mean, like, it was terrifying to see the men and the cops. There was like other cops pulling up and bringing inmates in. I mean, it was like a slap in the face. It really was. It was like I was in a movie, but it wasn't a good movie because I was the star, you know what I'm saying? But it almost felt like a movie. That was another, the ride to prison was another extremely, extremely hopeless moment where I could just feel it in my gut and in my heart. Like, just my whole soul just ached. I mean, I was just in such pain. It was such a culture shock. I mean, I had never been locked up. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what was going on. I wasn't a bad girl. I was never a bad kid. Like, I just, you have mental issues. You have depression, and you end up with addiction. I mean, and then you end up in jail sometimes. I mean, that's what truly happened to me, I went through a rough time, and that's what happened. So that's why we need more help for people like myself, or when you're going through an episode or something. We need to have more education and more help for this type of stuff, because yes, prison changed my life, and it helped me for the better, but that's because God allowed that for me. Any situation would have helped me if God would have allowed it to help me, you know what I'm saying? So it didn't have to be prison. And I suffered from PTSD and flashbacks and anxiety and probably health issues from that nasty place. I mean, it was like an old prison that they have actually closed down now because it was so old and decrepit. I'm serious. Look it up. Fountain Correctional Center for Women in Rocky Mount. It is now closed. And you will see people saying that it's because it's disgusting. But anyways, I'm getting so off topic. So, okay, after we dropped the guys off, we dropped the girls off, and the girls went to the same prison. By this time, It was like 4 hours in. It was like 2, 3, 4 a.m. I think it was like 2 a.m. I mean, I had to pee. So I remember they let me go into the maximum Raleigh prison in North Carolina. Sorry. They let me go into the maximum prison and to pee. And I remember like they had to take off my shackles and my handcuffs, and it felt so awesome when they took those off. But when I went in that prison, I was like, oh my God, is this what mine is going to look like? Because it looked like those prisons you see on TV. You know, they do. And then I realized I'm alone. I realized they dropped everybody off. And this whole 4-hour ride, I had been with these women, you know, and even the guys were in front. We could kind of see them through like the little cage wall thing that they put in between you. Like we could kind of see them and stuff, kind of talk. But I talked to the women mostly, and I realized at this point I was alone. And I think that's when it really, really, really hit me. And I remember sitting in the back of that van, and there were like these little teeny tiny window holes that you could look out. And I remember watching like all the signs pass on the interstate, and I had no clue where we were at, and I had to watch the signs because I didn't know where I was going. And I just remember bawling. I mean, I had nobody to talk to. And it was a very eye-opening experience in that moment alone. You know, just watching the signs pass me by on the interstate, not knowing where I'm going, in handcuffs and shackles on my feet. You know, like I'm some hardened criminal. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I've made mistakes. I might be a little crazy, but I'm not a hard criminal. You know, I'm not. And it's just crazy how they treat you sometimes and what they make you go through mentally and physically, you know, because you make mistakes. I mean, it's almost like then that would be everyone in the world should be thrown in prison for their mistakes. You know what I'm saying? Like, but that's just how it is. And I'll never forget that ride. That was a very long 6-hour ride, and I remember the policeman got lost. It was awful. And then when we finally pulled up to my prison, I was very relieved, because if you could see pictures of it, it looks like a boot camp. You know, it didn't look like a prison. It looked like a summer boot camp. So at that point, I was like, okay, well, at least this place doesn't look like the 3 other prisons that I just saw. You know, at least it actually looked different. And that was because mine was a minimum, theirs were maximum. So that was my ride to prison. So my next question is, what were your first moments in prison like? Well, considering that the driver got lost, the police driver got lost, I didn't get to my prison until about 3 o'clock in the morning, I think it was. So, when I first arrived, it was pitch black outside, you know. But at least I was a little bit relieved, you know, because like I said, at least my prison didn't look as scary as all the other ones I had seen before that. So I was a little bit relieved for that, but I was still nervous as hell. So when I first got there, I had to take a shower, get my fingerprints taken, take my picture, all at 3 o'clock in the morning. Even the guards at the prison were like feeling a little bit bad for me because it was so late or early, whichever. Yeah, so once I had got all that done, they gave me my bag of clothes and or whatever. I can't really remember. They gave me like a bag of stuff. They gave me a blanket and like maybe a pillow or something. I can't even remember. But they gave me my stuff, and they walked me into this pitch black room except for there were lights on in the bathrooms, and there was just rows and rows and rows of bunk beds. And of course, on the bunk beds were the sleeping inmates. So I went and I put my stuff down, and the guards came and they got me, and they walked me over to what I didn't know at the time, but it's called a day room, and that's where you sit and you watch TV. And so they took me into the day room, and they were just talking to me about different things, like what I had to do when I woke up in the morning. And they even lied to me. And I remember they told me that I wouldn't have to get up as early as everyone else, since I had just got there. And they wake you up at like 5 a.m. in prison, and it was like 3:30 by the time I was talking to these guards. And so they lied. They told me, oh, you won't have to get up that early, we'll let you sleep. No, that was such a lie, and I was so gullible, I actually believed it. And I remember, like, I was asking them, like, do you know if I'm gonna get half my time off? Do I get half my time off? Of course, they didn't know. Of course they didn't know. Or if they did know, they surely wasn't telling me. So, I do remember they talked to me for a little bit, and then they were like, all right, you can go to bed. So I went to bed. I actually slept because I was so mentally and physically exhausted that I did actually sleep for an hour. And when they woke you up in the morning, the guards come in there, and no lie, they come in there like this. Wake up, ladies! Wake up, ladies! Wake up! Alright, get your butts up, lady! Like, oh my God, it's 5 a.m. So, let me tell you, waking up in prison, and that's the first time you're gonna meet everybody that you're bunking with, like my bunk mate even, because I was on the top, right? So I had to like climb on top of my sleeping bunk mate. So like waking up at 5 in the morning and meeting everyone, that was another extremely shocking moment. But let me tell you something, I got so lucky. I ended up, when I got up and I walked towards the bathroom, I saw a girl that I knew from back home who had actually done prison time prior to this. And I knew that. So when I saw her, I was like, oh my God. Like she was my saving grace, let me tell you. Because first time being locked up, you sent me to prison. I don't even know what city I'm in at this point. I could be in another state by now because you took me somewhere. I have no idea where I'm at. You got lost. It took 6 hours to get there. I got there at 3 a.m. the devil's time. I mean, like I have no idea where I'm at, what's happening. I'm in such a shock. I was already in a terrible mental state before I got to prison, and so by this time I am in like an even worse mental state. Like if I didn't have mental health problems before prison, I certainly did now. That experience alone definitely caused more problems than what I had before mentally. So but yeah, seeing her, that was like a saving grace type of moment. And it was because she kind of showed me the ropes. She had already been to that prison before, so she already knew, she knew like everything. There was people there she already knew. So of course she's introducing me to people. So I was extremely lucky to have somebody there that I knew. So I was like very happy about that. That was definitely a great moment to wake up and see that. But even seeing her and even knowing her, and you know, of course it was still extremely scary. And like everybody flocks to you. What's your name? What are you in here for? What did you do? How much time do you have? And then everybody starts analyzing like what you did and how much time you're gonna get. Because of course, here I go again. Am I gonna get half my time cut? Is that really true? Or you know, like I wanted to know, because not knowing when you're getting out is like an awful, terrible feeling. So, you know, of course, that was like one of my first questions to everybody I talked to. Do you know if I'm going to get out early because of this? And, you know, of course, everybody was telling me, yeah. So that it was nice to have somebody there, but it was still a huge shock to me, and it was still scary, and I still cried. So my first moments, I was still crying. I was. But at least I had somebody to comfort me. So definitely one of the most popular questions I've been asked over the years regarding my prison experience is, did anyone ever try you? And while I didn't really have many problems at all, I mean, I typically get along with everybody anyways out in the free world, and so I knew I was going to get along with people in prison too. That's just my personality. But I mean, of course, there's always going to be people that are going to try you, because they're going to know that this is your first time that you've ever been locked up. So whenever you first get to prison, I don't know if this is true for all prisons, but for the prison that I was in, when you first get there, for 2 weeks, you're in, I can't even remember what it's called. There was a name for it, but I can't remember anymore. But you're in almost like a training experience, because you're not with the general population for about 2 weeks, because they try to make it seem like this is where they train you for going down the hill, which is what it was called, because the general population and the rest of the prison was literally across the street and down the hill. So they called it going down the hill. So so I remember, like, when you first got there, you had to stay, I guess, up the hill for 2 weeks, because you had to be trained, and then you had to go to like the doctor and all that to be checked out and make sure that it was okay for you to be moved to general population, you know. So so anyways, you had to stay in this place for 2 weeks, okay? And in this place, you know, there might have been people in there that had done prison time before, but everybody in there is new. So it's really not as intimidating as being in the general population would be, because there's old timers down there. You know, there's not old timers here in this part, because this is where just the new people come in and then they leave and go down the hill. So I didn't really have many problems in there. There was like a couple of girls in there that at night their beds were close to me and another girl that I became really close with, and like they would get really loud at night, and my friend and I would be like, shut up, we are trying to sleep, shut up. Like, if you're not hard before you go in a place like this place will make you that way, because first of all, it's gonna break you down and make you mentally crazy, and then second of all, the people in there are gonna break you down and make you mentally crazy. So like, I mean, I've always been a pretty tough chick, but I mean, I was kind of just going insane in there anyway from all the like stress I had been put through mentally. So my friend and I were like, y'all need to shut up. We're trying to sleep. Shut up. The lights are out. Be quiet. If the lights aren't out, you can talk. As soon as those lights go out, that means that it's time to sleep. We have to get up at 5 a.m. Like, I want to sleep. So that was really the only problems I had there. Now, when I moved down the hill into general population, I will never ever forget. I was standing in the canteen line, and canteen is basically the store in prison, and you stand in line, you wait your turn, you walk up there, and you buy your stuff. Okay, pretty simple, right? Yeah. I remember I was standing in line. I remember they had a cigarette line, because you used to be able to smoke cigarettes in prison, and I'm so glad that when I went, you could. And yeah, they had a cigarette line, and they had like a food line. And I remember standing in either one of those lines. I can't remember which one it was. I like literally just got down the hill, and I was standing there in line, and I'll never forget, this girl was like, hey, and I look over, and this girl, like, she's big, she's burly, she looks like a man, and I don't mean like those women that you see that work at Whataburger and they look like men. No. These women, you really think they're men, and you wonder, like, are you sure that they're in the right prison? Like, they legit looked like men. Some of them, not everybody, obviously. But I'm saying, like, the ones that were big and burly, they looked like men. And she looked like a legit man. I'm not gonna lie. She looked like she could be scary. She looked like she could be crazy. And I looked over at her, and I'm like, what? You know, and she was like, are you gonna buy me something? I need cigarettes. She either needed cigarettes or she needed food. I can't remember what line I was standing in. And but she was like, I need this and you're gonna buy it. And I looked at her and I said, I don't have the money for you. And I'll never forget, like, the look on her face was like, this little white girl just told me no. Like, I know she ain't never been locked up. I know she's a little white girl, and she just told me no. I did, though. And let me tell you, that girl and I, we ended up being friends. And the funny part is she actually told me. She was like, I can't believe that when I asked you that day, I cannot believe that you told me no. I was not expecting you to tell me no. And I was like, well, I'm not a pushover. I wasn't out there, and I'm not going to be in here. And you have to be that way. You can't go in like, oh, I'm tough, I'm bad. You cannot do that, because you might get jumped. Or you might just get beat up by one person. You never know. But you also cannot be a wussy. You can't back down. You can't show weakness, like as far as letting people do stuff to you. You know, you can't allow that to happen. You just can't. You have to stand your ground. So I really never had problems with anybody after that. There was a couple of times where I exchanged words with, like, a couple of the girls, women. There was never, like, a full-blown fight or even a full-blown argument. I really can honestly say that the worst enemy there was my own self, my own mind. My mind was my worst enemy, and I fought with my mind more than anybody else. So I can honestly say that I had a lot of friends while I was there, and I didn't really have much trouble, and I didn't really see much trouble. I mean, of course, there was arguments and fights that I didn't see, but it really is, as far as, like, what you see on the movies and stuff, I didn't witness that. It happened, but I didn't witness it, and I got along with everybody pretty well. So I can at least say that my time there, you know, with the women and the girls that were there was pretty good. And I actually met some really awesome people there, and some of them I still talk to this day. And I consider them like my best friends, because they were there for me at the lowest point in my life, and they're still there now. And I think that kind of place can offer you some really amazing friends, but you do have to be careful who you talk to while you're in there, definitely. Which brings me to my next question. Did you ever meet a murderer? Well, actually, you know, I was in a minimum camp, but as I said before, I think I said before, there are some prisoners that they go to maximum prisons, and they end up moving down to a minimum camp like mine for, like, good behavior or something. I guess that's how it works. I'm not too sure. So I think that at the prison that I was at, I don't think that I would have had as many crazy murderers in there as a maximum prison would have, but there were still people in there. So I actually met a lady that, well, it was a younger girl actually, and she got a few years because she actually, like, ran her boyfriend over with her car. She didn't kill him, and the reason that she did it is because they were fighting at the time, and I think he was, like, putting his hands on her, and I guess she got in her car and she hit him with her car. So that was why she was in there for a few years. And I also met a lady that she said she caught her husband cheating on her, and she literally cut his penis off. No lie. She got 17 years. That's what she was in there for. She only had like maybe I think 2 years left by the time I was in there with her. She really did do that. So yeah, there was that one. And but the story that I have for you about the murderer that I met. So basically there was this lady there, and she was sweet. She was a nice person, and I didn't know at first what her charge was. And she was like kind of like one of those quieter people, and she kept to herself a lot, but she was nice, and so she would talk to me a lot. And I remember one time the girls, quite a few of them, we were all sitting around talking, and they started telling me that that lady that I was just talking about had actually killed her girlfriend, and that's why she was locked up. And you see, every time this lady would come over and talk to me, and like I would be sitting on my bunk, because I always got the top bunk for some reason, and every time I'd be sitting there and she would come talk to me, she would always put her hand like on my leg or something. I mean, I never really thought anything of it. I didn't know she was a murderer either, so at least that was the rumor. And so anyway, those girls told me that I needed to tell her to stop putting her hand on my leg, or they were going to tell her for me. And I'm like, no, I'll tell her. I don't need y'all to tell her for me. I'll tell her. So I did. I ended up saying, because she did it again. She came over, she talked to me, she put her hand on my leg, and I was nice about it, but I was, stern about it too. I was like, can you not touch me every time you talk to me, because it does make me uncomfortable. She was fine with it. She stopped, and we were still friends after that. Now, I don't know if maybe their concern was that she was one of those people, maybe that she fell in love with people and then killed them. I don't know. But there are people like that. It's not funny, but I'm not sure. Maybe that was what their concern was. So maybe that, that's why they told me to let her know that. So, but, and I let her know, and we were still fine after that. So, as far as I know, there weren't any other murderers in there, not that I knew of anyway. I remember one of she was one of my friends. She was an older lady. We called her grandma because she was an older lady. And I remember a rumor went around about her that she was the lady that put her baby in a microwave. But that lady would have been in a maximum prison. And come to find out, it wasn't her anyway, but that lady would have been in Raleigh. So that's my murderer story, I guess. I guess I got pretty lucky with the women in prison. I didn't really have problems with people, and I don't know, I didn't really meet, I didn't get to know very many stories, though, not in depth. So I always thought that the lady that got 17 years for cutting her husband's penis off was a little bit out there, but I guess that just goes to show you don't cheat on people. No. So one of the most recently asked questions that I have gotten is prison really like Orange is the New Black? Yes, it 100% is just like prison. And the reason is because I'm pretty sure that Piper is a real girl that really did go to prison. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that, I think, is what I had heard. So it is really her memoirs from prison. So, don't mind my cats. They're trying to... You can't fight, you guys. Stop. Anyways, yes, it really is like Orange is the New Black. Now, again, the prison that I went to was a lot more strict than that one portrays. However, I know for a fact that that stuff does happen. Everything, everything from the crooked CEOs to the lesbian drama or, relationship drama within the prison, fighting, I don't know, just intimidating people, just all kinds of stuff. Everything you see on that show it's true. Now, granted, I might not have seen that while I was there, but it still runs rampant in other prisons, if not mine. We didn't really have like drugs in our prison. If we did, I surely didn't see anything. So, and as far as like the relationships that the girls would have, they were a lot more strict. They wouldn't even let girls that they knew were dating or whatever, they wouldn't let you like sit really close together. They wouldn't let you hold hands or anything like that. They were really strict about that. But everything else was 100% to a T what I experienced. I had a job when I was in prison, and I fought so hard to get the job that I had. I was one of those workers that you see walking on the side of the road picking up trash with the bright orange vests on, and I wanted that job so bad because I wanted to get off the compound, get out of the prison camp, and I got a taste of freedom every single day. When we would go out there and pick up trash, man, I loved it. We made like 70 cents a day, I think. It was worth it because that was getting out of prison. So, but that was me. I was one of those girls with the bright orange inmate vests picking up trash on the side of the road. And funny story about that, if you found drugs or paraphernalia or anything like that while you were cleaning up the trash on the side of the road, then you were pretty much guaranteed to get time off. So, my lucky butt, I was walking down the road and I happened to find a crack pipe. And I don't think I've ever been so excited in my life over a crack pipe. Not that I've ever been excited over a crack pipe, but I'm just saying, like, it was so funny how exciting it was to find this crack pipe. That crack pipe got me 1 day off my sentence. 1 day is like 1 week when you are locked up. So that crack pipe meant the world to me when I found that. When I called my mom that night, I called my parents that night, and they knew that if I found stuff, I got time off. And I was like, Mom, I found a crack pipe. She said, good. I don't think any mom any other time would ever say, good, you found a crack pipe, child. Way to go. But that was one instant where it was super awesome to have found it because it did knock 1 day off my sentence. And I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but like I said, when you're locked up, 1 day is a week, and I was so happy about that. So yeah, you do have jobs when you're in prison, and yeah, pretty much it is just like Orange is the New Black to a T. I mean, I met so many different characters while I was in there. I was so humbled by the experiences that I had, by the girls that I met. I remember meeting girls that said, I remember this one girl, and I'll never ever forget what she said. It just has resonated with me for nearly 9-10 years now, and when she said it, it hit my soul. Because, like I said, I went in this experience thinking that my life was terrible and that I didn't have anything and that I was just losing it all. And like I said, it was like God was like, okay, if you think you have it bad, then I'm going to show you what it's like to have it bad. And I remember this girl said that she was so happy to be there in prison. She said because she had been sleeping on the streets and not eating, and she didn't have a home, and it was winter time at this time, and it was cold. And I'll just never forget, I had never heard somebody say they were happy to be in a place that was tearing me apart. I mean, that, just hearing her say that, I mean, it's been 9 years and it still touches me and it still humbles me, because it really makes you think, we've got to stop taking for granted what we have in life. Being able to have a home and have privacy and walk to your refrigerator and pull food out and eat it. You have got to learn to be happy with the small things in life, because those are the things that we take for granted. And when those essential things are taken away, you are stripped of your humanity, and it is not a good feeling. It's not. And I don't ever want anybody to ever go through what I went through. Those feelings that you see those girls feel on Orange is the New Black, when they are bawling and crying, and they when Piper would end her phone calls and she would bang her head on the wall and just bawl and bawl and bawl. That is 100% what it feels like. And watching it on screen, yeah, it's great entertainment, but to be in that position is such a gut-wrenching and a soul-searching experience. And I'm so glad that I am a spiritual person and that I know how to take things like that and fine-tune myself and my thinking. I'm so glad I was able to do that. But there's so many people that's not able to do that, and they just let this kind of experience make their life, and make them, and it shows in their personality for the rest of their life. You can tell they're a convict. You can tell. And people are like, you went to jail, you went to prison. People can't believe it, because I'm just not, I don't portray myself as that kind of person, but I'm getting so off topic. But actually I'm not, because when you watch Orange is the New Black, you see all the laughter and all the pain and all the hardships and all the scary stuff that happens and people dying, and that really happens. The prison that I went to, a girl really hung herself in that prison. I wasn't there when it happened, but they said that before I got, I don't know how many years before, whatever, I think a couple years before, a girl had hung herself in the bathroom with her shirt or something. So everything that happens in that show is so true. And that's why I'm going on and on about how hard it is, because you see in that show how hard it is for those girls, and it really is that hard. And so yes, it truly is like that show. So I hope maybe now people that watch it will have a new respect for it, because now it is true, and it really does happen. So another really big question that I have been asked over the years is, did you ever lose your mind or yourself while you were locked up? And the answer is definitely yes. And I feel like during this time of my life, I feel like I gained even more mental health problems during this time, because it's been almost 10 years since the experience, and my PTSD and my flashbacks have gotten way worse. I never had flashbacks before. I never had PTSD before, but the flashbacks are fairly newer. PTSD is something I've been suffering with since I got out. The flashbacks have gotten a lot worse in the last few years. I lost my mind and my mental state the whole time I was in there, and I don't think I've ever completely went back to normal, to be honest. I was locked up during Thanksgiving and Christmas, and being the very first time I had ever been locked up, I went to prison instead of jail. I was far away from home to a place I'd never been to before. And I was locked up during the two biggest holidays that you spend with your loved ones. Let me tell you, that killed me more than anything, I think, was being locked up during those holidays. And because when it was Thanksgiving and when it was Christmas, nobody wanted to celebrate it. I mean, everybody was depressed. Everybody was crying. Like, we just wanted to be at home with our loved ones, you know, and it was super, super depressing. And, you know, I definitely lost my mind while I was in there. I remember there was a time when I saw, like, one of the girls that was there. She was a lesbian, and I remember she was a blood, I think. So, you know, she really dressed like a guy. And I remember I had been in there for so long, I looked at her and my mind seriously thought that it was a man. And I'm not trying to be funny when I say that. Like, my mind truly thought it was a man, and I had to remind myself, you're in a women's prison. You know, that's not a man. And that's just kind of an example of your mind will start to play tricks on you. You know, you might have heard people say that people kind of get in that mindset. They start acting like a convict. And you do. I mean, once you're in there for even just a couple of weeks, you start to lose your mind. You start to get in that mindset, you know. And you really do start acting like a convict. I mean, I could go on and on and on and on with all these different stories of how I felt like I lost my mind. Even when I got out, the day I got out, my parents took me to Hardee's. Hardee's. And when I walked in Hardee's, I felt like everybody in there was staring at me and knew I had just walked out of prison. Knowing that that wasn't really true, but my mind, like, it was so hard to transition from being locked up and from being told what to do and using the bathroom in front of people and being told when to eat. And it was so hard to transition from that to back to the free world. I felt like everybody knew, and I felt like everybody was looking at me funny. And I remember there was a time when I was locked up when I thought I wasn't even ready to get out yet. Like, I thought, you're not ready to go back home yet, because if you go back home, you're going to get in trouble again. I remember actually thinking that. And I had been in prison for maybe a month and a half at this time. So I only had maybe a month left to go, a month and a half left. And I remember thinking that I wasn't ready yet. And that kind of scared me. You know, that I was actually thinking in the mindset that I wasn't even ready to get back out, because I felt like if I got back out, I would end back up in this place. And I wanted to do everything I could not to end up back in this place. You know, I lost my mind before I got there, you know, because of the hell I went through just to get there. But then, yes, being in there, you know, you almost lose touch with reality. You just don't. You're so lonely and you are so hopeless that your mental state gets absolutely destroyed. And if you're somebody like me who's already sensitive and already is depressive and already has mental health problems, you know, that's just going to worsen it. And it has. And there's so many aspects of my personality that I've carried over from that experience now, 9-10 years later. You know, there's aspects of my personality that I got from being locked up. You know, I have bad anxiety. I don't like being around a lot of people. I don't like being in crowds of people. I don't like to talk to people in the same way that I used to. I don't trust people the same way that I used to after things that I saw, things that I heard, you know. Sorry, my cats, just this whole video, they've just been, but anyways, I definitely would say that I lost my mind while I was in that place, and that my mental health problems have gotten worse over the last few years, and it is all from that experience. So that is why I really wish that we had something else in place besides jail and besides prison for people that mess up with drugs and alcohol, you know, and even other charges. Because yes, prison helped me, as I said, plenty of times, you know, and I don't regret the experience, but it has hurt me also. And I feel like I could have gotten rehab, and that could have maybe been better for me. But that's a whole different topic that I promise you I will cover one of these days soon. But I just think that we need to find another way to help people that have mental health problems like depression and addiction and anxiety and all of the above. I think we need to find other ways besides jail and prison to help those types of people, because in a way I was helped, and in a way it got worse for me mentally. So I guess you take the good with the bad. Which brings me to my next question and my last question, which is, what is the biggest life lesson that you learned from being in prison? And that, my friends, is definitely, you have to learn to take negative situations and negative things that happen in your life, and you have to learn to turn them into something positive. If you master that, my friend, you have mastered the world. Because I'm telling you, bad stuff is going to happen to you, and you are going to go through situations that are going to break you down to absolutely nothing. And if you cannot learn to take those situations and turn them into something good, then you're going to be depressed, and you're going to be heartbroken, and you're going to be mad at the world for the rest of your life. You're not going to understand anything. You have got to learn to take negative and turn it into positive some way, somehow, some shape, some form. Look at me. I took prison and I made it an experience of a lifetime. I mean, words can't even explain to you what prison has done for me. I took that situation and I made sure that I learned from it, and I made sure I grew from it, and I made sure that I am more mature, but I can't even say mature, and I'm saying, you know what I mean. I made sure that I took a terrible experience, probably one of the most awful experiences I will ever have in my entire life, and I made sure to turn it into a positive experience, to where, you know, here I am 9-10 years later, and I am much stronger, much more mature. I'm more humble. I see the world differently. I appreciate the small things in life. I have learned that no matter how bad your life seems, there is always something worse. And you don't want it to get worse. I promise you, you do not want it to get worse. Appreciate what you have now and take it and make it into something bigger and better. And I promise you, if you can do that, you've mastered your life. I don't want you all to have to go through what I went through just to figure that out. It's not worth it. It's not, because now I have to deal with the mental problems that I have because of what I went through. So I just want everybody to know that even when life seems like it's at your worst, that might be the very time that you need to take to turn your life around and make yourself a stronger, smarter, happier person. Sometimes it's the terrible things in life that end up being the best things for us. And I know that's crazy, but it's true. Because if that wouldn't have happened to me, I don't know where I would be right now, and I don't think I would be the person that I am today. So please take these stories and my advice, and please take it to heart. I hope you all enjoyed the stories. I hope you laughed. I hope I touched your hearts. I hope that I helped somebody. And if anybody is going through what I'm going through, or maybe, I hope not, but maybe you're about to go to prison and you have questions, or maybe somebody you love is in prison and you have questions, or if you just have questions or you just have something to say, I would love to hear what you have to say. Just be nice, please. Be nice, because I'm still an ex-convict, so I'm still crazy. But I love you guys. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed my prison experience.